Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening we have one of our favorite guests, Dr. Angela Celeste May. We know her as our organizational, clinical, and forensically trained psychologist. She is also the president and co-founder of A.M. May and Associates Incorporated. She is the president and founder of Celeste Productions Incorporated. She is an author, editor, musician, and she is the 2023 Distinguished Psychology Award from the Michigan Psychological Association Foundation. And I know I just messed it up, Doctor.
No, that was pretty good. That was about it.
She is the black chair of the first black chair of the Michigan Health Council Trustee Board in its 82-year history. And she helped create a column for the Michigan Women's Forum, Phenomenal Michigan Women. And the column is titled Scholars Teaming to Alleviate Racism in Society. Thank you, Dr. Angie, for being with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here, as always.
I'm so glad you're here because it's December.
Yes.
December 2025. We are all in our festive year. It's holidays. There are parties and family gatherings. And, you know, Dr. Angie, in our world, there's a lot of division.
Yes.
Unity is something that we should be approaching.
Mm-hmm.
And especially politically, whether we're talking civics, you know, whether or not you should feed poor people, whether we should be deporting people, whatever it is. And you now have people saying we shouldn't be apologizing for being white. I don't know when anyone's ever asked anyone to apologize for being white, but that's not my issue today. Why aren't we seen, or why aren't we trying to pull together more as Americans in a unified environment right now? What mentally are we seeing?
Well, mentally, I would say a few things that we're seeing is an excellent question. And we should be pulling together as Americans because we are all Americans.
Right.
Psychologically, though, it's kind of human nature that when a person feels attacked, an animal or a person or a plant or feels attacked, to put up the defenses, right? To protect oneself. And certainly, you know, we always say that of course it's not all white people, but for those white people who do feel attacked, because we have more, you know, finally more and more conversation in the public square from people from all kinds of backgrounds talking about the real history of America, talking about a fuller history of how black and brown people have really been treated from the beginning, including by our forefathers and foremothers, having real honest conversations about those things, as well as the many contributions of black and brown people to this country, in terms of intellectual properties, inventions, science, all the things you can think of. Those truths fly in the face of, sadly, the many centuries long propaganda that has suggested that no, black and brown people have not been not only important contributors, but some of the main contributors to helping to develop our country as we know it, you know, today, in terms of the advancements, the wealth, the power, the things that we've been able to give to the world. So because of the many years and decades and centuries of propaganda, and I do call it propaganda because this has never been a quote unquote like white person first country. It's never been that. The indigenous people, the black and what would have been called Indians or Native American people of this country, as with any country that's been colonized by other countries, whether it be by Spain or, you know, whomever, they had lives and progress and all kinds of things before folks came here to colonize it. So
Absolutely.
we already had the impact of indigenous work and brilliance and minds and all of that um, to begin with before folks came over. And then, we know the history, of course, with the transatlantic slave trade and all of those things. Um, so with the combination of the indigenous people who have always been here and the transatlantic slave trade who brought so many Africans to this country and others. And thirdly, as well, the immigrants.
Mm.
This country has always been about welcoming immigrants, even if it hasn't always been the kindest to all immigrants. But our Statue of Liberty and our motto is about welcoming people from all over the world. So that's all. So as a result of those, mainly those three things, black and brown people, people who are not white, as well as people who are white, have all contributed to creating what we call the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the truth. The propaganda has been, however, as we know, that black and brown
Mm-hmm.
people are, they're in the background, they're the servants, it's the white folks who, white men in particular, but who really built this and created it, what we know today as our country. So when we are now finally having a more fulsome conversation about who all contributed and has always been the strength of this country and a big part of the strength of this country, for those who built their identity, the psychological identity, on white makes right, as the old saying goes. White is, we're the best. Everyone else is below us. For those who built their identity on that and have had it like entrenched within them, raised with this kinds of conversations and these kinds of thoughts and concepts, it's very threatening. It's
Mm-hmm.
very threatening because people feel their privilege, their white privilege is being threatened. Their ability to have power is being threatened. Their like I said, psychologically, very identity of who I am and what makes me valuable.
Mm-hmm.
All of that is being threatened. For those, now again, it's not all white people, but for those for whom a big part of the identity is built on shaky ground. It's
Yeah.
shaky because A, it's built on concepts that have never been true. And then B, it's built on concepts that are more superficial. As we've talked about, in the past, psychologically, the higher your self-esteem, the more you value and love yourself, the easier it is to share space with other people, even those who are not like you, as well as those who are like you. And in doing so, you're less threatened because you're more secure.
Mm-hmm.
So that insecurity, that feeling of my privileges being threatened, all of those things are a part of what makes people throw up their hands and try to push back on that. And that pushing back looks like running away, like you were saying, away from each other as Americans rather than towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
Anthropologically, scientifically and anthropologically, even though that's not my area of expertise, but I am somewhat familiar. Research has shown that something like it's like 90, 98, 99% really
Mm-hmm.
of humans are alike. In terms of our brains,
Interesting.
we have two eyes, we have, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We're built, we're made the same, we have the same endocrine system, all of that. That small little 1%, not even 2%, I don't think. I mean, I could be quoting the stats wrong, but it's pretty close to that. That little percent that shows our skin color variations and our hair texture variations, those things that we've built whole identities on,
Yes.
are such a small percentage that we if we understand that, we would understand that really we are all much more alike than we are different. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, those divisions are there as psychologically as a protection, try to hold on to not only what's familiar but hold on to what I think makes me, like I said, for those who feel that way, makes me valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also they're uncomfortable conversations because people did
Mm-hmm.
some awful things So
Yeah.
who wants
Yeah.
to hear that? Especially with your people, who wants to? It's not an easy conversation, and it requires maturity and willingness to grow in order to make positive change. And there are a lot of white folks who do that, but then
Correct.
there are those who are, fearful of that. So that's a big part psychologically, is that self protection and feeling of the loss of identity.
Wow. That is a great breakdown of that, Dr. Angie. I want to give you a Bible verse because we talk scripture and we talk spirituality all the time.
Yes.
Galatians 6:2 says, carry each other's burden, and so you will fulfill the law of Christ. And so, for those that are interested in healing and joining others, because we see people come out online, we see people publicly coming out to speak out against some of the atrocities that are happening, people being deported, protecting people,
Yes.
many of the things that a lot of people are disagreeing with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What tips or tools should people use to help bring others together? I don't mean negatively, I mean positively.
I would say that we have some wonderful examples of people who are doing that right now. Just as you said, we can
Mm-hmm.
take we can take a clue. We can take a cue from some of what so many American citizens are doing right now, and that is exactly as you said. Standing up for other people and trying to push back against and use our voices against those who may not have the voice to do it for themselves. And if I may, say, people who are doing that, and many of them have said it when they've been interviewed, or we see them on, on the news or whatever, when they're asked about being out there,
Mm-hmm.
pushing back against people who are being wrongly treated, simply because of their, background, or they may be immigrants or whatever. Um, Many of them say it's because I have heard many people say that could be me, or we don't want anyone they're part of our community. So I think that's a wonderful starting point to answer your question, recognizing the that those who have been treated like other, quote unquote, as if they're so different from us. A good starting point is to do like these citizens have done, and that is to recognize that actually they are our neighbors, that
Mm-hmm.
they are part of our community. And we can define our community as narrow and as small as that particular neighborhood that folks are in, your neighborhood, and it just keep expanding it out, further out, all the way to real. I mean, it sounds corny, but yes, the world. It's all the way out to the
Right.
world. So recognizing the things that we have in common, and if you can't think of any, like, what do I have in common? Just start with your humanity. I've heard many people say, especially when they're sharing their stories, whether it's online or in person or whatever, and they
Mm-hmm.
talk about times in which they may have been more prejudiced in their thinking. One of the things I quiz my psych students about is, what's the difference between discrimination and prejudice?
Right.
Prejudice is to prejudge. So prejudice is a mentality. It's a way of
Mm-hmm.
viewing, thinking about people.
Mm-hmm.
And then discrimination is the act, behavior towards someone that you are prejudiced against. So I've heard a lot of people who have talked about going from a time in which they were more prejudiced to a time in which they have learned not to be prejudiced. And they talk about how they began to, this is another very important step, beginning to recognize, like I said, about those things that they have in common. I've heard many people say things like, well, you know what, we're both parents. They have kids, I have kids. I can relate to how they must feel when their child is, being ripped away from them, or, whatever the case is. Looking for those, be very specific about the things that you have in common with other people. Um, that's also a very good step to help you begin to break down those artificial barriers that separate us. And
Mm-hmm.
I do say artificial because financial differences, like socioeconomic levels, regardless of those, regardless of education, regardless, you can go down the list, regardless of any of these things. Ageism is a real thing, being prejudiced against someone because of their age,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. Uh, in all of those cases, we can all relate to knowing what it's like when you start to get hungry, when you need sleep. If you have kids, if you don't have kids, you have loved ones in your life, knowing what it's like to be ill or take care of someone ill. There's so many more things that we have that we can relate to with each other than not.
Hmm.
So I think those are two really good starting places, is to work on, definitely work on recognizing the things you have in common. And if you, like I said, if you can't recognize any, just start with human things that you can
Right.
relate to. Though those are the ways that we teach our children to have empathy, to feel that you can walk in someone else's shoes. Some, of course, we can't always walk in people's shoes completely, but we certainly can find things in our life, in our own lives and experiences, that have caused us pain, and we know how we felt when we wanted to be comforted, so we can extend that to other people. Um, so, because we know what that feels like. And one other thing as well, and that is, as we talked about before, this business of, well, I don't see color and I don't see that.
Hmm.
Practicing, I would say, practicing working on seeing all of the person and appreciating them.
Right.
So if someone has a disability, don't act like you don't see the disability, and you may not want to call it that, and that's fine. A lot of people refer to those. Well, no, those are my strengths. Wonderful. It's part of who I am, part of the beauty of who they are. It's not all that that person is, but you take every part of the person and practice appreciating them and their strengths and the beauty in who they are. Those things all together help build empathy, and help build community, and help us come together, and help us recognize that those things separating us are more artificial than they are real. And that also breaks down fear. A lot of that separating from each other is fear based. We're taught to be fearful of each other, but it helps us to, again, like I said, come together and be more comfortable. And the more time we spend with each other and learn about each other, and that's another important thing, practice wanting to hear their story. Don't insist that they're, but know where are you really from. Like, let them tell you
Right.
their story. It's okay to
Right.
ask so that you can learn, but
Hmm.
learn to listen and appreciate their answers, and respectfully.
Absolutely. Dr. Angie, that's a great way to end our show. Thank you so much for coming on talking about unity. Before we get out of here, tell us where we can find you and how we can reach you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for asking. It's wonderful to be on. You can find me lots of places. So I'm on Facebook. I'm not on as many as the great Kim B. Davis, but I'm on a few of them. So you can find me on Facebook, Angela. It's always my name, Angela Celeste May, or Dr. Angela Celeste May. So I'm on Facebook. I'm on two Facebook pages. One's a music page, one's my other bigger page. You can find me on YouTube, where I do predominantly music stuff. You can find me on Instagram as well. With my sister, who's my business partner at our company, A.M. and Associates Incorporated. We do counseling, consulting, and coaching, creative coaching. I particularly do executive coaching and doctoral coaching as well. But we don't both do coaching. You can find us on Instagram at AMA Associates, and you can also find us on Facebook as well, AMA Associates. For bookings and interest in musical, if you want to reach out to me for music related things, you can also email me. You see on the screen my middle name, so it's
Hmm.
Celeste, and then add MUS, which is short for music, and the number one. So Celeste MUS number one at AOL.com. You can email me there. You can also see me on LinkedIn, and my website with my sister, our company, AMAssociates.com. Those are the main places. You can go to Reverb Nation / Angela Celeste May to find my music for my two albums if you would like to purchase, and also my book, which I don't have right in front of me right here, but it's called Freedom: What is the Experience of Living Without Negative Self-Imposed Limitations. You can find that at barnesandnoble.com. You can find it on Amazon, though I'm encouraging you to veer away from Amazon and go. And you can also find it at Ex Libris, which is the publisher of the book. Many people have found it very encouraging and very inspiring. It's a little research that I did, and I share the wonderful stories of the people that I interviewed from all different walks of life, different backgrounds, and different broad age ranges, in which they shared their stories about how they went from being stuck in some aspect of their lives to getting free of that, whether it's emotional, relationships, career, whatever the case. So many people have found that helpful, and I think that is it at this moment.
That always is a lot, Dr. Angie, but we are so grateful that you're here.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. It's the end of 2025. We look forward to seeing you in 2026 with more great, interesting topics. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays to you as well, and to all your wonderful audience.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Excuse me, guys.
Okay.
You know me as Kimberly Batcher Davis, your host. I look forward to seeing you in 2026. Thank you for continuing to view us, be a supporter during 2025. We're going to have great topics and interesting conversations for you. You know, you can see this show at youtube.com/Kimberly Batcher Davis. You can hear this show Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Wisdom. You can learn more about me as an author at kimbdavis.com. Thank you again for tuning in. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. I look forward to seeing you in 2026. And always remember, be magnificent. Hold on.